Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final stop. This of the Spartan season, the Pan American Championships coming from Meadowood Equestrian Center in Snohomish, Washington. Jack Bauer with me today. I'm Bracken Crocker. Jack, lead us into this thing. What are we looking for? We're having some audio troubles straight off the bat here from Jack. Something new from Jack's end. This course, though, will be an incredible course because this is a historic course for Spartan. We have been here before. We have had National Series races before. We have North American races here before. This is a site where we have had super length distance National Series events, but we've not had the beast distance count here in Seattle, in Snohomish, as part of the National Series Championship, the North American Championship, anything like that before. Jack, are you back here?
Am I back?
You
Can you
are
hear me?
back.
Perfect.
I don't think
that
you're
I've
coming
done
through
this
on your
before?
microphone, though, my man. We might have to check on that setting. I'll continue while we wait. Jason, can we flash up that beast map?
How about this? Am I good?
Oh, here he's back.
Here we go. Okay. I had the same setting we do on Race Brand. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, Bracken, I'm sure you had fantastic filling in for me right there. Yeah, let's take a look at this course. Historically, Seattle has been one of the fastest races out there. You actually, compared to average beast in the US, Seattle is about 35 minutes faster on the men's side than the average beast. And on the women's side, about 44 minutes faster than the average beast. And it actually has the second fastest winning time ever for a man or a woman at a US based beast. So I think it's going to be a really, really fast course. And just take a look at that course elevation profile in green right there. If you can zoom in, Jason.
Yeah, and when we talk a Spartan beast distance, we're talking roughly that half marathon distance. So to think about a 35 to 45 minute reduction in finish time on a 13-mile race, that's fairly significant, upwards of 3 to 4 minutes per mile faster on this course for some of our mountain half marathon beast distances.
Yeah, and if you've looked at the season so far, you had the nice flat fast course in Jacksonville, and they went straight to the mountains at elevation for Big Bear, and then the Utah Beast, and now we're back to pretty flat sea level type of course. I wouldn't be surprised if we're under an hour 40 and under for the men, and under 2 hours for the women.
It's certainly in the cards here. And this course is a tale of two courses. We have the type of course that we've seen the last few years, which is hard packed, fast, relatively what people would call very runnable terrain. And then we have what happens when it gets wet. This equestrian center turns into a bog, it turns into a marsh, the rivers, the streams rise. Everything gets highly technical from a slippery perspective, and then the times plummet. And on the calendar, on the weather app today, we're looking like we could see some of that. We haven't had the torrential rain that you get for the spring race leading up to this. And so the course is relatively intact right now, but it doesn't mean we won't see precipitation affect this race once it gets going.
I think anybody who's running this race here, if they've taken a look at any of the previous US National Series or NBC coverage that they've had for Seattle specifically, whether it's in April, whether it's in September, you better be prepared to be cold. Even if the temperature isn't close to freezing, once you get wet and you're out there for more than an hour, I could see some people starting to have a little bit of issues with their hands on some of the more grip intensive obstacles. So we'll see if the weather plays a role.
Yeah, and if we do, we're going to see it in the back half of the race, starting with obstacle 22. That's where we hit the Z wall, stairway to Sparta, beater, bender, box. You hit the armor and then right back to more grip, which is monkey in the middle. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight obstacles that require your hands. And 5 of them are fairly technical in nature, which means that if there is precipitation, if you are a bit muddy and wet coming into it, that's where we're going to see this weather really affect the race.
Yep. And if you were one of the faster runners in this course, you can see it gains maybe a couple 100 feet or so in the on that first climb, maybe 150 feet. And then it's just looks like it's pretty flat. We don't know how much bushwhacking or how difficult the terrain is going to be. But if you're one of these faster runners, I bet we'll see a breakaway pretty early in this race.
Yeah, and that really does bring us to the time where it's time to start talking about who's at the start line today. Because, like we said, this course is a tale of two courses, depending on precipitation or not. This race is a tale of two styles of athlete here. We have the traditional Spartan OCR athlete who are very good runners, but well rounded with everything they do and are waiting for heavy carries and obstacles to bring them into the race, to bring things back together. And then we're going to see the runners that you alluded to, Jack. The
Yep.
runners who are here to just put everyone out of sight early and often. And I think you have some stats to back some of this up.
Yeah, definitely. I think this in theory should be a runner's course. Let's take a look at some of those fast times that I was talking about earlier, Jason. So here are the fastest times. If you see any bold text on here, that's Seattle. Look at it. The Seattle's all over the place in terms of fastest courses right here. And you have some of the fastest pure runners in OCR history at this venue, whether it's Nicole Miracle on the women's side, Sean Roberts on the men's side, Nick Mask, one of the fastest runners out there. You've got some serious top end speed, real runners on this course. And I am excited to see how fast some of these athletes are going to go.
Well, you see people going under 90 minutes for a half marathon distance with obstacles, with terrain.
Stopping, terrain. Yep.
Yes. Some of these obstacles are carries, which are going to take you away from running. This, I mean, it puts in perspective the pace that we can be seeing out here. This is not the power hiking course. There will be some of that. There will be bushwhacking up steep 30, 35% incline in some of the ravine areas, some of those little ridges that you run back in the woods here on the backside of the course. But that is balanced out by some legitimately smooth, fast, runnable sections.
Yep. Yeah. If we want to go and just start the race, we'll see who's at the start line and kind of pick out some of the faster athletes who to keep an eye on. Oh, actually, let's take a look real quick before we do that at who has won the North American Championship. So this is actually the fifth venue out of 6 years that the North American or Pan Am Championship has been held somewhere. Last year was in Mexico. It was in Kelowna in Canada, 2022. Prior to that, Tahoe was canceled during COVID in 2020, and West Virginia for 2 years before that. So this is the fifth time in 6 years that this race has been held that it's at a new venue. I kind of like shifting things around.
Yeah, and this is a who's who of OCR in the last 5, 6 years. That there is not a name on here who hasn't been someone who's been a force outside of this race. This race typically is the example of who's the most well-rounded in the sport right now. If you take a look at the type of venues that they've chosen, outside of maybe Lake Tahoe, and I would even maybe throw that into there, these are courses that require a little bit of everything. You can't be a pure mountain guy or girl. You can't be a pure obstacle, or you can't be a pure technical runner. You have to be able to combine it all together, and every name on this list has that in common.
If we're looking at the men's side, you have 5 different winners over the course of those 5 years. Only one of those winners is at the race today, Rylan Shadig. I think it's going to be very exciting seeing him making his comeback after some health issues throughout the year. I'm really excited to see what he does today.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily after, but during. As recently as a week ago, he was having breathing issues on runs still, and he says it's hit or miss, where he has days where he's himself and days where he is at significantly reduced respiratory capacity. And we're really not going to know until the intensity ratchets up today.
Yep. And so he's one of the 2 returning former champions at the North American Championship, the other being Nicole Miracle. I would say she's probably the heavy favorite on the women's side on a course like this.
She is, and she just came off of a podium at a OCR World Championship. She is returning back to form after pretty catastrophic knee injuries, and this is back on the type of course that she's had extreme success on in the past, pre-surgery.
Yep. When it's flat and fast and Nicole's there, it's not smart to pick against her.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time she lost on a course like this.
Yeah. All right, Jason, I think we're ready to go.
So as we head down to the start line here, Jack, right away we can see that The top guys are here and fast. Sean Roberts hasn't been a part of, we see in the gray shorts and the red headband there, hasn't been a part of the Spartan series in a while. But he's back. He's a sub 150, a 4.0, a sub 150 in the 800. He's a 4.0 miler. We have Balin Bean there in that speed suit from Compress Sport. He is also a accomplished runner. He has some fairly quick trail marathon work. And we have Nicole Miracle, who she herself has had world championship finishes in the sport of OCR and high-level trail finishes outside of it.
Yeah, another thing that I'm really liking at the start line, obviously a ton of fast names. I love that they're starting the men and women again, which is what I remember them doing in Big Bear when I raced there. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nicole Miracle or some of the faster women end up sneaking in the top 10 overall. What do you think?
Yeah, I love the fact that they are starting men and women together. It eliminates the idea of the women having to catch and pass and navigate the back end of the men's field. Any person that they are running with from the beginning is someone who in theory can match up with them athletically, which makes it just a smoother pass on course rather than coming up with pace on someone who's blocking the trail.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
As we wrap up the national anthem there, Jack, actually let's go the opposite direction and take us through some of the foreign athletes in this national championship, or this North American championship.
I don't even know if you can say he's a foreign athlete at this point, Manuel Defoe, with how often he's been over to the U.S. racing. He was actually last year's North American Elite Series champion, and he came over from Switzerland. He knows how to podium at major races. Doesn't matter the style course. He will be up front, right there in the red Swiss top. Right behind him, Nick Mask. He is from Oregon or Washington,
Oregon, yeah.
So very familiar with this type of terrain, and he's run on this course an hour and 27 before, second fastest ever beast time ever. So expect him to go out hard. Brendan Neely from Canada, I guess that's international, but yeah, he's one to look out for as well. Just won in Kelowna a couple weeks ago.
And then opposite direction, more like Nick Mask locally, Balin Bean there with that quarter zip black top is local. Born and raised in Washington, trains and races on these trails. This is home field for this man.
And he has 2 straight races with a podium at the National Series behind Hawk Hall and Chris Brown. Wow, look at the pace that they're heading. That guy at the front going a little too fast, but Balin Bean, Sean Roberts asserting themselves.
And you can just see right from the start a different level of effort in the strides. There are people that were thrashing to start out fast, and people like Sean and Balin who are in cruise control. The very smooth way of taking that type of speed.
Yeah, you have 2 athletes who have been all over the podium throughout their career. The National Series champion this year, Ethan Brown and Ian Hosick, and they were already 5 seconds behind, 20 seconds into the race. Rylan Chaddock behind them. It's unreal.
Before we switch to the women here, one interesting piece to note there is that Rylan Chaddock is pretty much a fast starter in everything he does. He has great tactics, but he likes to rev high and push everyone above where they want to be. But with his respiratory issues, he started out mid to back of pack there, which we've really never seen out of him. And it's hard to tell, is this a strategy in order to avoid breathing too hard too soon, or is he rev limited right now?
Yeah, and if you're one of his opponents and knowing that that's his typical tactic, are you on this runnable section, you're like, I'm just going to make as much of a gap as I can just to kind of, because he's probably not used to being in that zone 5 type of effort, given his respiratory issues throughout this season. What type of approach would you take if you're one of the faster athletes out there? Are you going for it right away?
Yeah, I think the guys at the front, Sean, Nick, Balin, I believe that they all believe they're the fastest and best on this course, and they're going to assert with or without Rylan. So I don't think he changes their plan at all, but it certainly wouldn't hurt them at all to build up a gap there. And as we saw the women go out, you saw Nicole Miracle with a rain jacket or windbreaker on. This course has been known to get really, really cold when it gets wet. We've had athletes struggle with hypothermia or pre-hypothermia on course, and she's just preventative nature with that right now. She has it along so that if core temperature starts to drop, she can throw that shell on and keep racing rather than just go into self-preservation mode.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than getting a nice warm up in and having to stand at the start line for 10 minutes, lose all of that heat that you built up in your body, and then start getting wet. So I think it's a really smart idea to be warm, at least in the first 5-10 minutes. You can always take it off, tie it around your waist, but she is a veteran at this type of course, this type of weather, and I think it's a great decision by her.
Yeah, and we've been known to submerge on a course like this with the stream crossings, and part of what makes Spartan is that you don't have full view and idea of exactly how the course is going to go. So you end up carrying a little bit more sometimes than you would on a course where you know exactly what's going to happen just in case. And the example of that would be some sort of shell jacket.
Yeah, who else are you excited to see in the women's field? We saw Nicole obviously go up to the front, but I saw Cassandra Gill up there. We saw Rose Wetzel, Lauren Weeks, who just took the win in Utah a couple months ago. So I think that there are a lot of pretty solid names in this field, honestly.
Yeah, I'm always excited to see Rose Wetzel because she is the last remaining athlete from the heyday of Spartan who has hung on. She's in the late stage of what normally we would consider a competitive athletic racing career, but she really hasn't dropped off at all. And so I like seeing the old guard up there. And Cassie Gill is a big talent in the sport, and I'm excited to see where she goes. But I am most excited for Lauren Weeks. This is a High Rocks world champion who we questioned when she came out for Utah. Just how well will her training and fitness move over to the trails and obstacle course racing? And the answer was she blew everyone out of the water. Everyone except Nicole Miracle, who wasn't there. And now we get to see. We get to see again on a different style of course, how does this hybrid fitness hold up here?
And Lauren Weeks self-admittedly was kind of tiptoeing on a lot of the steeper downhills, so her margin of victory might have been even a little bit bigger if Utah wasn't so steep. This so far looks very runnable. I'm not seeing too much technicality on the footing. I'm sure we'll start entering the woods and it'll get a little bit nastier terrain pretty soon, but she must be a big fan of this given that hybrid is all running on flat.
Yeah, and yet she showed she's really, really good uphill. And this course will have power hiking sections and trudging sections up through some of this technical ground in the back. So I expect that her power output will translate to this. But what we haven't seen her on is this kind of thing. The soupy, nasty, muddy, wet terrain that Spartan always seems to find as we see the leaders about to enter it.
Yeah, and we're not even halfway through the race at this point. Looking at the course map right here, they're going to be wet early, and that's going to cool them off for basically the rest of the race. I think that getting submerged early on is definitely going to affect some athletes.
Absolutely. So we see them already trudging through thigh, waist, knee-deep water up on the grass for a little bit before plunging right back down in. And we have Balin Bean, the hometown kid who has been on a roll. Brendan Neely following, and they've already built up a little bit of a gap here, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, especially given the runners, like having Nick Mask and Sean Roberts, some of the Manuel Defoe, some of the faster runners. It's really surprising that we're already seeing a 30-second gap or so into the race, but we see it all the time at international races that home field advantage plays a big role. And you already mentioned that Balin Bean is from Washington. Brendan Neely, he just won Kelowna, which is very similar, where it's a wet type of cold Pacific Northwest type of climate, not in terms of terrain because you have the ups and downs on a ski mountain, but this type of like wet Pacific Northwest type of terrain really plays into their strong suits, and I guess that's why they already have a gap over Manuel Defoe in third.
Yeah, and he's an outstanding athlete in his own right. He's been at the highest level for a few years now here, and a late bloomer in his career. But what we could see is that as soon as the technicality ends, Balin Bean had a different level of aggression to his running than the runners behind him. They were still working, but he was attacking. And we have Rylan, who is also showing that type of aggression here, getting out and back to work. And Sean Roberts doing a little bit more of the walking here and not quite as snappy on his transition out as Rylan was.
All right, Sean.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. Okay, yeah, Sean just going through the water. Rylan kind of stayed to the left where it looked a little bit drier. I was just kind of seeing if they were going to follow each other's steps or if Sean just wants to take the tangent, save a couple seconds here or there. So he's still being aggressive.
Now, Jim Walmsley is kind of the exception to many rules, but typically the prettier you are as a runner in terms of long, bouncy 4-foot stride, the more of that speed you lose when it gets technical. And the lower striders, the people who are shuffle runners, don't lose as much. And Sean is as pretty of a runner as it gets. And I haven't personally seen him on this nasty of terrain before, which will be fun to see how he reacts.
Yeah, Sean's done plenty of savage races in Florida and South Carolina, the southeastern U.S., where I'm sure you're in and out of water crossings plenty of times. But it is very interesting to see, the beautiful stride kind of get broken up a little bit once the terrain gets nasty. So we just
you
saw
can see
Ethan
the
Brown.
different strategies here. Some people are really attacking in and out, and other people are using it as a time to just recoup a little bit.
Yeah, that was Nick Mask who just went by, and he's probably a minute and a half down pretty early on. Ian Hosa coming up. I'm a little surprised, honestly, that Nick is that far back. Ian looks like he's taped up pretty hard.
Yeah, Ian has an ankle injury and a calf strain going on to the point where his only running, we talked to Ian last week on a podcast, but his only running for that entire week prior had been an 8-hour mountain bike / hiking endurance adventure competition. But he had taken all true running out of it because his calf was so depleted coming off of the FISO World Championship.
Okay. Yeah, he's
here was our
from
early leader,
Idaho.
Jack, I believe you drafted Jonathan Stern. Is that true in fantasy?
No,
OCR
that was
this week?
Rich. I picked Al Gonzalez, and I think that he was just ahead of Ethan maybe a minute ago on camera. So pretty pumped at that. Yeah, for the listeners, we do a fantasy draft pick for some of the athletes who are competing on our podcast. So give that a listen on Race Brain if you haven't. But it's fun seeing the athletes. You kind of have a rooting interest in them if you pick them on your team. John Howard there. He just got a second place at DecaFit Florida last week. So good to see him trudging through here. He's been traveling coast to coast internationally a ton the past couple months.
Is that a Scott Lerg sighting as well? Looking good,
Yep.
trudging through that water, skipping through it.
Doctor, right?
He's in the medical field.
Yeah, and John Howard as well. So Dustin Needham flexing. I'm curious who's going to be in the lead on the women's side once they emerge. They should be coming pretty soon.
Well, of all the women in this race, there's one here who has never not been leading on a course like this. So you have to assume Nicole Miracle. Have to assume it. But Lauren Weeks is just the type of athlete who consistently makes us question what her ceiling truly is.
Yeah. So Bracken, you're a shoe expert. What would you be wearing on terrain like this? Because this isn't the only wet course out there.
Looks like
No,
First
it's
Ladies.
not. I think there are three real options on a course like this. I'm either going for something from VJ Sports Shoes, because nothing handles grip after getting wet and muddy better than their Butyl rubber does. So I would probably either be in their Extreme 2 or their, most likely I'd be in their Lightspeed. And is this Rose Wetzel?
Yeah, Rose, she's in the front right there. This is awesome. I mean,
So
she knows this terrain. She's raced here 4 or 5 times.
So we either missed Nicole. No, there's Nicole behind
Nicole's
her.
right behind.
We
She
have-
took off the pink jacket.
Yeah, we have Rose Wetzel leading out. And I guess if we do talk hometown, Seattle, Green Lake area is Rose's true home base, even though she's been in Colorado
Killing
a
it,
lot
Rose.
over the last few years. She's out looking aggressive and strong through here.
Yeah, Nicole's kind of trying to keep her feet a little bit drier, but
Job, Nicole.
there's a long way to go in this race. She's run plenty of terrain like this. I think she's fine being in second right here with first in eyesight.
Who's going to be third?
She has. And you know what? I can't think of the last time I saw Rose at a flat 13-mile distance. We've seen her run the sprint and the super distance at the series back in the day, but not many flat beasts ever involved in the big series races.
Looks like
Yeah,
Lauren Weeks.
I don't even know if there has been a flat beast. There was one in Mexico a couple years ago, but I don't think that Rose ended up racing there.
No, the closest we can come to that would be like a Glen Rose, Texas from back in the day. That's about as flat as a beast as they ever had. And look at Lauren using the hopping, kind of galloping, skipping strategy through the water. That's
Nice skipping, Lauren.
that's someone who knows what they're doing on this type of terrain.
We saw that a lot at Jacksonville, where they had the U.S. National Series open up for several years now, but a lot of the athletes I remember seeing Aaron Newell and Ryan Kempson kind of plowing through the water, and that they kind of did that skipping technique that Lauren just did. I remember seeing that vividly.
And the way she accelerated out of the water up onto that hill is, again, not what you expect from more of a power hybrid-based athlete. But here, this is, when I think of Seattle, I think of that river, and I think of these type of little ravines here. We get to see that it's steep enough that they've provided ropes to help athletes get up this.
You think Balin's grabbing it, or he's like, I can hike up this without it? Nah,
yeah,
right. Do the smart.
You start thinking, nah, and then at some point you realize it's not even worth it. I'm taking that rope.
It's like 60% loose gravel. You just grab the rope, and it looked like Brenda was right behind him still.
Yeah, and there are ways up that using that rope where it's an opportunity to rest. But he kept his cadence hard. He's in attack mode still. This is to me, visually an extremely impressive style of race so far from Balin.
Yeah, this is Hawk Call-esque in terms of the aggression that he's running up the hill. Half an hour in, you can see he has a 10-second lead over Brendan, or 9-second lead over Brendan Neely. Manuel Defoe and Rylan Shadag are in third and fourth, about a minute behind, and Sean Roberts in fifth. No Nick Massick sighting yet.
To finish out the question before, the other option is something like just something maximal for the beast distance. You'll see a lot of people in that. We saw some Nike Ultrafly at the start line. Saw some people in Solomon. It's basically you use your OCR shoe for this, or you use your half marathon trail distance shoe. Those are your two options. But with how much splashing we're seeing, I know which one I'd be in.
Yeah. And wow, Nicole already with a 1.5-minute lead. Looks like Lauren overtook Rose pretty significantly because we saw Lauren with maybe a 30-second behind Rose, who was in first. So Rose dropped from first to third about 40 minutes into the race. Casey Monroe, we didn't talk about her, but she has a National Series podium, or two of them earlier this year. So good to see her in fourth. Maybe she'll end up on it for the third time of the season.
Yeah, and Cassandra Gill hanging tough there in the top five. And the gap is starting to build. We had a 9-second gap at about the 30, 35-minute mark, but this is bigger than 9 minutes at this point. I mean, 9 seconds.
Yeah, Brennan should be, yep, there he is, right on the corner. But I think it's always great when you get to see some of the other athletes in North America. We're used to, shoe. Oh no, this is terrible timing. But I think it's always great when you get to see some of the top athletes from whether it's Mexico or Canada in the or Manuel Defoe, for instance, coming over from Europe pretty frequently. We're used to Ryan and Lindsay always having the success, but Canada is such a strong country of OCR talent, and it's not just Mick Girello, it's not just Jesse Bruce, some of the names who have been around for a while. You have athletes like Brendan Neely right here in second place at the North American champs. We had Sean Stevens Whale get third a couple of years ago in Kelowna, and I just love when the top dogs get to face each other.
Yeah, and I'm liking this course this year. They kind of flipped it on its head. This is a section we're not used to seeing until the second half of the race. That river section is a middle to back end section of the race. We usually start with more of the pasture running, the horse trails, and then we progress up to the technicality in the vert, and they're front loading it here. They're wearing people down with terrain, and then they're going to open it up on the back end here, which is a really daunting task for the runners. But Balin and Brendan obviously can split the difference between being one or the other.
Yeah, once we see the next person on camera, I think that we had Manuel in third and Rylan in fourth. We during that time, okay, there's Manuel. I was gonna say during that time we saw Rose kind of lose a couple spots. Do you think Manuel will? But nope, looks like he is right there in third, Rylan in fourth.
So right now, Balin and Rylan are moving with the most pace on these flats.
You
Manuel
think
and Brendan
Rylan's
are
moving?
seeming to be taking their time on the in-between terrain, whereas these guys are really, really running with some more aggression.
It's good so far,
All
man.
right. About a half an hour in, Rylan's taking some nutrition. That's pretty good timing, right? Every 30, 35 minutes or so during a beast. Even though it's a shorter beast, very likely, it's still a good idea to get nutrition a couple times on the course.
Well, and they know that the gauntlet of obstacles looms at the end. You know, keeping the glycogen topped off a little bit. Part of that's just cramp prevention and making sure that when you need to bear down and work on maybe a herc hoist or a carry, that you have that ready for you.
Yeah.
Move back
last
up
thing
to
you want to do
Balin
is
Bean here. Still running hard.
he's having honestly one of the most impressive breakthrough seasons that I've seen in a long time. Because he's only 22, 23 years old at this point. And I was looking it up earlier. So he has 2 National Series podiums on the season. And if he's able to pull it off, which at this point, he's the way he's running right here, probably an hour left in the course, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't end up on the podium at the end of this race. They've only been about 9 or 10 guys who have ever had 3 National Series or North American Championship podiums in the same season. Balin Bean might join that list.
Yeah, and we're deeper into the race at this point. The female split from the 8-foot wall was 39-ish minutes. And we are now ahead of the course on this point. So my guess is we're up near an hour already, and his stride still looks like he's running a shorter distance than a half marathon distance. When he first came on the scene, he showed potential. But I don't know if any of us thought his potential was running away from the field at a North American Championship.
No, definitely not. And Balin Bean last year, he had several local wins. He had it at Big Bear and the Beast, very mountain course, but he also had one at Fort Carson. And Bracken, you used to live in Colorado Springs as well. That's a nasty course, some really bad terrain throughout the course. Just you see him watching his step basically every other stride right here. So if he's had success in a course like that, you know that he can run on very technical terrain where you have a lot of uneven footing. So what we've seen on camera today, I'm not surprised that he's not just a mountain or a fantastic mountain runner. He can also do it on the technical stuff.
And this type of grass, these type of fields are not smooth at all. And the terrain kind of shows that, but there's so much that goes on underfoot that the grass covers. And he's long striding. He's bounding down this kind of terrain. It just again, I said it before, but a visually impressive style of racing. There are racers who pull away from you and they just look like they're working, but he looks fast on a terrain that really tries to sap your speed.
Yeah, he does not look like he went out too hard on the opening half, and now he's like, oh crap, I have to hang on for the same distance of the race for the second half. He looks very in control. You don't run with the sandbag at this point on wet, overgrown grass up a hill at this point if you don't have some pretty good energy left. And I am really impressed at the gap he's already putting on Brendan, who I haven't even seen him in picture yet.
No, and
but
this
maybe
looks
he's right there
to
in the
be
top left.
Yeah, as he shows up here on our screen, this looks to be the section of the course where they've had a bucket carry in the past. Over to the right as you go back down. I'm not sure how much they're going to use of it, but back down that little slope, it looks pretty reminiscent of where Hobie Call tripped and dropped his bucket back in the day.
Yeah.
And I've been on that course. I've been on that section with a heavy carry. It is steeper than it looks, and the fact that that he's running with the carry right now again shows how he's feeling right now, because it is steep enough that you don't want to be running unless you just actually have that type of energy right now. And he looks aggressive.
Yeah, that Hobie year was so impressive because the rule back then, you didn't have a lid on it like you do now for the bucket carry. So he had to basically scoop everything back and then finish it, because if he finished the loop without the right amount in his bucket, he would have had to do the full thing again. I remember that happening.
Yeah, and you can see Manuel again, still running smooth, but Rylan was more of that Balin, where attacking that downhill rather than braking a little bit.
Yeah, Brendan's still looking good, but he clearly lost some ground to third and fourth place. And, Balin definitely created quite the gap over the past 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, this is a tight spread now, suddenly 2 through 4.
How do you think, if we're able to see them, or I guess we're moving on to barbed wire crawl, do you think Ryland's going to make a little bit of time on that carry and maybe put himself in third?
Look at his pace he's moving with here. These are aggressive movements. These are explosive movements. We really haven't seen people move like that in OCR in a beast distance. You might see it in short course. You might see it in a sprint towards the end, but this isn't the gauntlet. He's moving with pace in the middle of the race through obstacles.
I'm sold. I'm really impressed. I mean, the whole season has been super impressive, but just sticking it to everybody so far in the opening 45 minutes of the race. He already has a minute lead. This is Balin Bean's breakout moment, in my opinion.
Well, and he's moving through this. When we see people go through those little trenched in barbed wire crawl and the rolling mud with this type of aggression, as we finally see him back off slightly, he was moving with the kind of pace that people do when they're trying to make a move at the end of the race. And now our first sign of fatigue there, he actually slowed down a little bit. Maybe that dive into the water showed him that maybe just chill for a second, keep the hands good because he knows some grip's coming up. But the pace he's working with really has me impressed.
Yeah.
It's such a taxing move. The difference between coasting through that barbed wire and leaping and rolling the way he is very, very big in terms of cost of energy.
Yeah, was this part of the course back in the day when they had Ryan Kent and Ryan Woods on that tire flip? Because I thought that was like the last part of the course on this flatter gravel area.
Yeah, back on the other side, you come back in, usually and finish. This is more of a patch that you either, again, sometimes loop around and finish, but start with. But I don't think we've come back into it from this area since back in the day when this led to the finishing gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the type of field running that I was talking before, where, yes, this is open up and run steepness, but there's so much growing on the ground that every step has a little bit of wiggle under your feet.
Yeah, and Ryland's
ahead.
Past Manu, so he's in third, presumably, at the moment.
And this is what you don't want, right? You don't want to take someone who's had some question marks about their health or fitness and give them momentum in a race. But he's moving up through the field now.
I mean, Ryland must be feeling actually pretty good at this point after, having a little bit of doubt throughout the summer and the spring with some of the breathing issues. And now he's finding himself in third place in a North American championship that he's won before. He's usually a little bit more aggressive, but he seems to be making his way up in the field. I think there's a big confidence booster for him getting back to his old self.
Perfect throw there, but interesting, Jack. We had one spear waiting there to be thrown, and he didn't choose it. He chose to retrieve one.
Huh, I didn't notice that. Maybe there was an issue with the rope or something on it.
Could
might
be.
have pulled it to the side.
But that usually right there is the last nerve-wracking obstacle. There are other things you can fail, but the spear feels like a little bit of luck with such a small target these days.
So looks like Brendan is doing Atlas carry right there. So Balin's got, now it's probably a minute and a half lead at this point.
Yeah, and Ryland comes in. Mm-hmm. Only a down and back behind him.
Yeah, Brendan Neely, he ran, I think it was a 32:19 for a 10K, 32:17, something around there earlier this year. So one of the fastest flat runners out there in the field. But you wonder if he may have paying the price a little bit for going out so fast, because it looks like third and fourth have definitely closed the gap on him pretty significantly over the past couple miles.
Yeah, you wonder what that strategy has been. Was it go with Balin until I crack and now I'm just running scared, or was it starting to feel what's happening, back off and conserve so I have something left to deal with these guys if and when they make a move?
Yeah, let's see.
See that spear sitting up there against the fence?
Yeah, no, that was a good observation. No one grabbed it. 0 for 2 still.
Yeah, maybe they just assume there's something wrong.
All right. So Brendan
Balin's
nailed
still
it.
working.
Yep. Yeah, very flat compared to what we're used to. That perspective gave it. Got Jack Goris coming over to get the shot. Ryland nailed it. Good.
Ron stuck it.
Looked to me like he used that spear.
Yeah, it's not standing up anymore. That was a good observation. Let's go, Manu.
Shot Ryland!
That's 8 to 10 seconds right there.
Ooh,
that's
right at the
through.
bottom of that.
The stick.
Yep. Hey, all it has to do is get in there.
It's Will.
Yep. What a relief for that man. You'd hate to fly all the way over from Switzerland and miss your spear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am kind of surprised we have not seen Nick Mask or Sean Roberts at this point in the race.
Yeah. Yeah, and it unless there's been a failure off screen, it just speaks to the technicality of the first half of the course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you feel as though the first couple miles of the course, you're gonna, if the rest of the course is a similar type of terrain, you're just going to continually lose ground if you're not really feeling it at the beginning. So I guess it would be quite the task to close the gap on him if you weren't really in the picture early on.
It really would be. And we saw there Balin leaving the carry as Brendan came through, and there is a huge psychological advantage to be one full obstacle, especially a carry loop ahead. Not having to pass each other on the carry, be able to be gone as they come in.
Yep, you basically place it down. You get to look at them. They look back at you, and it's like, I've already got this heavy thing out of the way.
Our first slip we've seen from him today.
Yeah. But yeah, it is always great being one full big obstacle ahead of someone, because you know they're really going to have to push it to close the gap on you, and easier said than done against someone like Balin. So these time gaps are basically identical to about 15 minutes ago, so pretty consistent across the board.
And we haven't seen inverted wall, which means it happened prior to where the footage picked up here in this little gauntlet area. So I'm guessing it's about 5 to 10, probably 10 minutes in the past. So maybe right now we're approaching that hour mark.
Because timing mats, if all of them have a time at that point, it's already happened. So yeah. All right, rope climb should be no issue for him at all.
And yet these slick black ropes they have, which are skinny, are never a gimme when it's wet. And this just has that dreary Pac Northwest look to it today.
Yeah, everything. This is the definition of the Pacific Northwest. Just misty, overcast, looks wet, pretty cool, very green. Yeah, this is exactly what we'd expect at this time of year out there.
You can even see the crash pads, the mats here have that water glistening on them. This is not the easiest, but no real issue for this man.
Didn't quite need a third pull, so Balin's a taller endurance athlete, so pretty easy for him to get up that.
This man has also changed his musculature over the last year or two. There was a joke or two made about him with his last name being Bean, String Bean-esque in his appearance when he came onto the scene, but he looks powerful the way he moves now through this course.
I was very impressed when I saw him at Big Bear for about 10 seconds because he was already up the hill. But no, he has definitely packed on some muscle this year. And we just finally saw an update on the women's leaderboard, and it looks like Nicole has about a 2-minute gap, and Rose Wetzel's still sitting in third. Lauren Weeks in second place currently. Now, if you're Lauren Weeks, you're about an hour into the race. Are you still pressing at that point, knowing that you might lose a little bit of time on some of these obstacles? Because she definitely does not have the experience that Rose or Nicole would on Spartan style obstacles. She's only done a handful of OCR races in her life. Or do you just keep pushing the pace and you're sitting in second place an hour in, you're clearly feeling fit and good. What would you be doing if you were her?
Well, Lauren might just be the easiest athlete to predict ever, now that we've gotten to know her, which is she is going to press beginning, middle, and end of race, no matter what scenario has played out, no matter if she's in first, 15th, or 50th. She just has one mindset, and that is attack. And so, yeah, she is going to push with everything she has this entire course.
Yeah. And we had in 4th place Cassandra Gill. She was a sub 17-minute 5K runner at Iona. So she was a D1 runner maybe 6-7 years ago in college. She's like a 35 flat 10K runner as well. So I think now that they're able to open up a little bit more, I could see her getting back into the picture a little bit. She's had a pretty solid season.
And it's a good reminder of the type of speed that exists out here, because this course, again, is designed to sap your speed with how spongy and technical and just soft the course is. But she's a sub 17-minute 5K runner.
Yeah,
That is legitimately moving.
killing it.
That's faster than plenty of the guys or plenty of the athletes in the men's field.
Yeah. We have a loose cargo net today, which is just miserable out there on course. Just,
Especially
again,
on the
saps your energy.
All right, so basically half a cargo, or just the climb portion of the cargo net is all that's separating 3rd and 4th with Rylan and Manuel Defoe. Z-Wall with that. Ooh, that was that was quite the reach there, Brennan. I don't know about that.
That was a bottom reach. I haven't seen a limbo move on Z-Wall,
Yeah.
but he's through. Doesn't matter if it's close or not. He got through. The bell was
Still
rung.
got it.
He's on.
And we've seen specifically in Seattle, Z-Wall cause VJ, Ryan Kent, some other top athletes who are usually bulletproof on obstacles. They've had issues and had to take a penalty because of it.
Yeah, everything changes when the grips are wet. And we've seen a bunch of people here take the inside first, which is maybe with the level that their obstacle game is at, doesn't even matter anymore. But this obstacle is always a gimme on paper when you're studying the course map, and then you get up to it and you just never feel quite as good on it as you would have hoped you would.
Yeah. It doesn't look like you have a lean on it. Sometimes it's on, undulating terrain, and one side you definitely want to be on that side for your grip, so you're more falling into the hill versus falling out. But all right, so it looks like Nicole might be getting lost, might be getting a drink. I don't know. Yeah, thirsty. Probably doesn't feel too good being cold.
No, not at all. Little different approach than Balin through there, who just
He yelled cannonball.
kind of, just belly flops straight into that thing.
He's
Such a
looking
long
so
strider
fast
through
still.
terrain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've studied and pretty much know everybody's stride in the sport. Who does it resemble? Are you thinking anybody? Because I don't know if his form is definitely different than I've seen in the sport.
Look at that. That is a very, very advanced version of getting up that. Finding that traction to go sideways with his feet, getting that locked out, locking off, pushing up. It's just his evolution as an OCR athlete has been pretty cool to watch. But no, he doesn't remind me of anyone with his running. Maybe the way he strides out in front of his body reminds me a bit of Woodsy, and the way he kind of churns his arms. But no, he runs like him, and nothing jumps off the page at me.
Yeah. No two strides are going to be similar, but a lot of people make, the Atkins and Ryland comparison, for instance. And if you ever see someone with a fast turnover, it's like, oh, they run like Nicole. But I was just curious, since you pretty much know all the athletes throughout time.
Yeah, he's got his own little version of it, but the gap remains about the same. You see,
close.
Ryland's just going to muscle it. You're not going to see finesse. You're not going to see a lot of technique. He's just going to muscle it up. He's a power-based athlete.
This does not look like a guy who has dealt with health issues for a while. Oh, as Nicole misses her spear throw. Bounced off the ground.
Miss?
It did. Maybe I misinterpreted that, but it looked like it looked like it
touched
hit,
and then
hit the
bounced
ground.
up.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Ryland. What Ryland may be better at than anyone I've known in this sport is staying fit and keeping training volume and intensity up when he loses a version of health or fitness. He translates all of his training time and intensity to the next man up. Okay, I can't run, I'm going to bike. I can't bike, I'm going to lift. I can't lift, I'm going to do sleds. He is always training, and it's why he comes out and does these incredible deca strong times when he can't run and the mile times when he can't do the full fit. And he is a master of translating other forms of fitness into different races.
Yeah, even if it's not specific necessarily, like in a running
Correct.
race, you'd ideally want to do more running.
So if
Okay,
he can't
here in
run
the-
as much right now, you know that man's in the gym, and so just powering up that wall is it's just going to be a arrow he has in his quiver.
So we saw Rose maybe 30 seconds ago go through the dunk wall, and then Cassandra Gill in red right there. I didn't see Lauren Weeks. Oh, never mind. She is right there
Caught
with
the
the
glimpse of
spear
her.
throw. Okay.
But has any woman in the top 10 thrown less spears than Lauren in the last few years?
Well, she might want to throw another one with the miss right there.
Yeah, it's just it's probably the piece of all of this she's done the least in training.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Lauren, she's probably only done 10 races in her life, maybe. Probably fewer than that. OCR. She's done plenty of hybrid, obviously, but
So Nicole Miracle here, jacket on now after going through the dunk wall, getting that core temperature back up, and just running away with this race now that second place missed a spear.
Do you think that it actually stayed dry? Or like is
No,
it useful
but it,
putting on
it
something?
really doesn't have to. It's just about heat retention at that point. She's going to be cold and wet, and then she's going to be warm and wet.
You'd rather have some layer on you just to kind of maybe trap a little bit of body heat at that point.
Basically, it's a version of throwing those space blankets on at the end of a race. Even if it's pouring rain, it's going to help you. And it's waterproof enough that even if there's water on the inside, waterproofing almost always means lack of breathability.
So we
which
have
in this case is a
women
good
on
thing.
spear. We have 3 women on spear. We just saw Cassandra throw, and it looks like it's stuck in at the far end. So she made it. Rose has taken 10 plus seconds, but that saves a penalty loop. She got it.
That was
Let's see if
actually
Casey
pretty
can make
quick
it.
by Rose
For her.
standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. You hate to see
she's
anyone
definitely-
miss in this scenario.
Yeah.
Come in as a group, get out as a group, go back to racing.
That's what you want to do. And then hunt down second place.
Oh, heartbreak.
Casey missed it. I'm surprised because she's probably run more races than anybody in this field.
Now, we go from the obstacle she's done less than anyone to has any woman in this field done more rope climbs than our CrossFitter?
Effortless. Oop. Almost took herself out right there on the strap. So it still looks like Lauren is in second place. And then Rose got out after Cassandra Gill. So Cassandra presumably is in podium position at the moment with Rose close behind.
Now, this
Here's
is a
one of the
tricky
trickier
obstacle
obstacles. Yeah.
Yeah, in this terrain, in this conditions when it's wet and you can see the footprints from the mud, it is very difficult to do that if you can't get your hand up to that bar that you can't really see from our angle. But there's a metal bar that runs parallel to the lip of that box there. And if you can't get your arm up to that, you're in trouble because there's no purchase to be had against the side of that. Balin's long, he's athletic, he powered right through that.
Now, we just saw Cassandra right there stop, put on some gloves. She just lost probably 10 seconds or so doing it. But do you think that that's due to cold? Maybe she's losing some finger dexterity? Or do you think it's just she's using it for extra grip when it's wet?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but in this kind of scenario, a slow climb is better than a fast penalty loop.
Mm-hmm. Just like Rose with their spear throws. Take your time, get set, be confident that
Right.
you'll make it, and you'll save a minute and a half in your penalty loop.
Yeah. Yeah, is it the best strategy for maximizing your overall speed? No. But the best strategy for not doing poorly in OCR is not failing a thing.
Yeah, but it looks like she had probably a 10-second or so lead over Rose, Cassandra did. Now it's up to about 19 seconds as of after the rope climb, so there's the accurate split. Nicole's putting on a clinic, though.
4 minutes up, but as impressed as I am with Nicole, look at Lauren. 2.5 minutes up on people who spend their time training for Spartan race, and she has a penalty loop.
Rylan
That
right
rope
there.
way. played a mean
If
trick.
if you're a
there, had
shorter
some
athlete,
slack in it.
if you're a shorter athlete, this box truly is a very difficult obstacle when it's wet.
Yeah, it really, really is, and it
'Cause you're gonna need
punishes
a
the women's field more than the men.
I was gonna say if they don't have a step up like on many of the other obstacles, if it's a 10-foot wall, they'll give the woman a 1 foot head start or so because of the step up. I don't believe that they have that on box.
And
But
even if they
was that
do, you can't run and jump off the step up and they don't here. But you can't get that type of launch onto it because it's so close to the wall.
I didn't even realize that Brendan Neely's in third place now. Rylan moved into second.
Rylan's made a pass. But that was a good box. That's as fast as you can do the box right there.
Yeah, and that corner looked real slick. I saw Rylan and Brendan kind of lose their footing going to the right. So we'll see if the same thing happens to Manuel after this.
We saw some dirt running before, but now you can see volunteers with their ponchos on. The rain must be coming down harder than we can see because this dirt is dirt no longer.
Yeah.
You see that fight to get to that unseen bar up there.
Yeah, let's see his footing when he comes down.
There you go, Manuel.
No, he hugged the inside, but
yeah. And so that's the length of the climb right there, what we can see on camera. It's a flat equestrian center, but you can find a 200-foot climb back in there. And if there's vert to be had, the Spartan course designers are going to find it.
always go up. Balin just using those arms, real powerful stride, long stride, like you mentioned. Super impressive so far.
You can carbon date how far we are into these races by the length of his compression shorts. Those things have gone up about 3 inches every 40 minutes so far, maybe 25 minutes.
Looking like a basketball player from the 80s.
Not even wasting time fixing them. Dive into things, jump into them, shorts roll up, leave them, and keep rolling. Oof.
Ooh. Monkey in the middle. This might be the first time that he's actually had to face this.
Yeah, I can't think of a time he would have. So Monkey in the Middle is a Spartan obstacle that debuted back in Lake Tahoe at the first World Championship, where you have some sort of obstacle first, usually twister, and then they put a monkey bar transition in the middle, and then you have to do another grip obstacle at the end. And it just breaks your rhythm, but more than anything, it lengthens the obstacle. So this will be the longest time they spend hanging from their hands all day. And it's raining.
I was going to say, do you see all those droplets coming down as we walk by the truss structure? You can just see him just falling off. You know that this is tough to grip because he's not skipping anything. He's very confidently grabbing one at a time rather than making an aggressive move.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. That was confident. He one-handed at the end there. And those are fat grips. Fat metal grips that are cold and soaked. And he went through that. No, it wasn't fast, but it was about as fast as you can go through safely on a day like this.
What do you think? 40 seconds or so? Might have. Like you've definitely got to have some grip endurance on a wet obstacle. If that's probably how long it's going to take most of these athletes today.
Yeah, for sure over 30 seconds spent up here. Let's time Rylan.
Yeah.
Rylan is real close. Going for the backwards technique. More biceps.
I don't know what happened here, but Rylan's made up maybe 2 minutes from the first 20 minutes of this race. We thought it was a blowout.
Closing, honestly. Yeah.
This is not a blowout anymore.
You have a watch on this?
I do. We're at 20 seconds-ish, 25. Hey, look at that rain down on him.
All its precipitation. You know he's... Oh, I'm really nervous for him right here.
Come on.
Oh, no.
We've seen it in the past.
Oh, nice job.
Good job, that was fantastic. But
it was about 44 seconds.
Okay.
And a spectacular dismount.
That was the perfect time. Brendan's really moving through this. He does not want to be on this wet.
No. And you stereotypes exist in this sport for a reason. And one that matters is Canadians are phenomenal with their grip work.
And he's doing matching grips every single time rather than hand over hand. You can see they kind of face each other. The palms face each other. And he got through that thing probably 15 seconds faster than Rylan.
Yes.
I've got to say, I don't know where Rylan made up all that ground.
I don't
Between
either.
Brendan
I'd
also
love
made
to
up
have
some
had
ground.
eyes back in there on this course when it got nasty. All I can think of is that we've seen Rylan in Kelowna,
When you train
and we know
solid
what he
enough,
can do
that
when the
grip
terrain
strength
is
in water
awful,
don't make a difference.
and maybe he did that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was running with Rylan on some awful terrain for runability, and he split like a 445 mile, and I was rabbiting with him, and I hung with him for like 4 or 5 minutes at most, and that was all that I could hang with him. But he can run as fast as anybody on nasty terrain, and it's probably why he made up a bunch of ground. Smooth. You are allowed to touch that horizontal truss.
During the transition points, yes. But
Yes,
the
yes.
center truss there, that's a no-go zone.
Correct. Yeah.
Come on, baby.
And this man's just seen it all. He just competes like a veteran. He's done, and as I say that, he comes off. Terrible announcer timing.
Ooh. Okay, that's kind of cool. Not really anything heavy.
No, I take those little the kitty kettlebells and go do your penalty loop. But I like the fact that they're giving a grip related penalty for a grip related obstacle.
Mm-hmm. Even though it's light. Now, Sean Roberts is one of the best obstacle movers in the sport. You know, he faces a lot harder ones in Savage Race. He's a great rock climber. First time we're really seeing him on camera since the race started to open up. But even he's a little cautious on this, it looks.
Yeah, there's just nothing confidence inspiring about wide grips, metal, cold, and wet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And these transitions
got this.
are not technical, but they're cumbersome. They're rhythm breakers, and they never arrive right where you want them to arrive.
Just adjusting.
good, nice
You got to
adjustment.
go opposing.
Yeah,
Pulling
good
a Rylan.
adjustment from forward to back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good job,
there we
Sean.
go. Smooth move, just like Rylan.
Chase him
But
down,
that's the
Manuel.
second time in 4 people that we've seen someone have to make a dive for it. So it looks like that might have been about a 2-minute penalty loop for Manuel Defoe right there. If it's 2 minutes behind.
And at
on
that
the-
point, even 20 pounds per hand for 90 seconds to 2 minutes running at this point in the race, plus cold and wet. Those kettlebells have been sitting in the rain the whole time. 20 pounds is enough that it's not pleasant by the end of it. You don't get done with that and think, I'm sure glad I had those in my hands.
Yeah, and it's basically like you're running with a weight vest. It's just going to slow you down because you're not as light as you are just regular running. And Cassandra Gill just plowing through some of the athletes in front of her. Let's see how she does. She's a little shorter, so has to use a different
Yep.
technique than the guys.
Great move. Pinch that knot between the arches of your feet. She couldn't get her arches up to the second one, but she's
There you
up
go.
on
Got
that
it.
safety bar now, and she'll be
Good
good.
job.
Real good pull strength at the top. But yeah, a lot of those ropes still have 2 to 3 knots on it. You'll see the guy in the blue shorts doing the same thing, but Cassandra made pretty easy work. But you basically have to just shimmy up it really one at a time. You can't get up it quickly unless you do that jump that we saw Balin do.
Well, coming towards the end here. Festival area on the rig. Now this metal bar here is soaked. You're going to see him
Ooh,
go up, even using
chicken
the
wing.
chicken wing. He'll slide himself along here. There he goes. It's just smart racing.
Not a move you use often unless you need to.
Will he chicken wing the rings? He will. Why not? You cannot fall off like... I mean, I'm sure you could, but
Yeah.
you're not going to fall off. You're not going to fail out.
Oh, got it. Balin Bean. That was a super impressive performance on pump for him. 3 National Series or North American Championship podiums on the season. He is the breakthrough performer of the year.
Brendan back up, working his way into second place. Oh, Rylan coming off a
Second
penalty
place.
loop. Not quite able to run down and regain second, but has worked his way all the way up to a podium, which if you would asked him a month ago, he wouldn't even have been at this race.
A week ago, he wasn't even considering it. Happy to see him back on there. But amazing performance by Brendan also. Let's give him a shout out. Not too well known by a lot of the athletes in the US, but if you're in Canada and you've been paying attention to the circuit there, you knew how good this guy was, and he delivered
on your
today.
glove material.
This could be any year in the last decade almost here. Nicole Miracle in her Solomon S-Labs, just using that compact all day long fast stride. You can never tell how hard she's working, but she's always gapping everyone. This is just vintage Nicole Miracle.
What pace do you think she's going?
You can't tell. No clue.
Yeah, that was going to be my
pace or 5-minute pace. You never know.
Pace, yeah.
There are people who their stride changes as their pace changes. She really does not.
Yeah.
She's as
Nicole's
smooth
putting on
as it
gloves.
gets.
Yeah. Nicole putting on gloves before Monkey in the middle. She probably has the best overall grip strength in this entire field.
She's the best
phenomenal
rock
rock
climber.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is tricky because in the last race I did, these were the conditions and very cold as well. And on this, your skin doesn't want to stick, but your skin doesn't slide. These rubberized gloves here do want to stick a little better, but they also will slide on your palm, especially if your palms are wet. So there's an advantage and a disadvantage to this, but with a woman like this that has not only the grip strength, but the moving through space coordination that she does, you wouldn't expect her to fail. That being said, these grips are a whole lot wider apart for the women than they feel for the men. Smaller frames, larger reach.
Yeah, I think Nicole's going through this so composed, though, realistically. She's like, I just don't want to fall off. You know, she's mixing, matching. Oh, never mind. This is the commentator's curse. This is the second time we did it.
The only mistake was overhand grip rather than reverse grip.
I said the word opposing grip, and then as soon as I said that, she switched to hand over hand, and that's when she fell, it looked like.
Interesting. Putting it up on the shoulder, which if you want to save your grip, the shoulder's the place to go if you're allowed to here. But they have to take it down through here, which is just awkward.
That's a penalty. Okay, now it makes sense why Manuel Defoe lost 2 minutes to Sean Roberts on that portion.
Yeah, and if you're on the verge of cramping, your hip flexors are not going to do you any favors through something like this. Hamstrings are not going to like this. You're an hour 20 into the race at this point. You don't want to be doing this. This is just a chore.
I kind of like these penalty loops that, you know, really demand a little bit more out of you instead of just a simple 200-meter run loop. This is multifaceted. You had...
Way to go, Nicole.
You know, go under,
take it home.
A crawl, and a farmer's carry all in one. This is impressive.
Is that Lauren there? Staring up at the obstacle, trying to figure out how she's going to go through this?
Was that her in red?
No, that's Lauren.
No, Lauren's
that's
right
a racer
here.
who's out.
Okay.
Oh, that is Viv. So this right here is not a huge gap. Now, we're looking at, with the pace she's moving, we're looking at a full 50 seconds for this obstacle. And Lauren was out 20, 30 seconds ago. So, yeah, it still is a minute 20, minute 30, the gap. But that's not out of this world if, let's say, another obstacle were to be failed.
The thing that makes me a little nervous about Lauren right here is in High Rocks, kind of her kryptonite has always been farmer's carry. Yeah, I just had a feeling that a grip-based one would be the one that would do her in.
Yeah, she's a great athlete. She could figure her way through obstacles, but when it's this cold and wet, you need to have been on obstacles recently. The farmer's carry is not going to bother her here. This is what? 35 pounds lighter than what she's used to?
Yeah, per hand.
Per hand.
Nice change up.
But it's still
race.
It's
a rhythm breaker.
The ultimate rhythm breaker.
Yeah, it's a long rig.
I am all in favor of doing this for every obstacle that you fail. This is great.
This is one of those where the punishment fits the crime in a good way.
Yeah.
Your grip failed you. Let's make you uncomfortably carrying something in your grip.
Easier.
Yeah, because Monkey Twister, we already saw that, or Monkey in the Middle. It was taking the top athletes 40, 45 seconds to get through it. Like that's a demanding effort on your grip to get it done. So it should cost you at least double that on a penalty loop.
Look at her
she has a
cadence
stride.
again. She's right back to fast run.
Yeah.
Always
Passing
talking.
Dustin. Yep. Yeah, she has just such an aggressive stride. It's super impressive to watch, whether it's a Deca. I hear you, Dustin.
Now, this takes nothing away
more
from getting up close to 90 here, locking out.
But doing the matching right here, now she has to touch it twice as many times. And she's using a ton of biceps right there that she probably is going to want at the end.
Now, she looks good, and I'm not going to give her an announcer curse, but by announcing it, you are. But if you're going to match on Twister like that, also burning out the biceps with double time on them is a really tough ask of your arms. Now, clearly, she's no stranger to this kind of movement, but we've seen Nicole in the past match on Twister, but she does it at a dead hang because your arms don't blow out like that.
Yeah. Lauren getting dizzy. So Laura was mixing the roll plus the regular crawl towards the end technique. It's a good idea to switch it up, especially in a longer crawl.
So when I compare athletes of different endurance sports, I like to think, how would one do in the other one's discipline compared to how that one does in their discipline? And here we are, 60 plus minutes into an endurance race, and Lauren's within 2 minutes of Nicole.
60,
who is
almost hour 45 in.
She could be, okay, so she's 2 minutes into hour 40. And what if we were doing an hour 40 of high rocks? How close could the rest of this women's field be to Lauren? And that conversation right there is not designed to take anything away from Nicole. It's to show how well-rounded Lauren Weeks is.
So versatile.
Because the rest of this field would be 15 minutes behind her right now if this was
without question,
two high rocks is.
Ooh, another exciting battle. So we've got Rose stepping up to monkey in the middle, right as Cassandra just emerged from the crawl with the farmer's carry. So looks like Rose will likely, even if she makes this quickly, come out in fourth once they intersect. I think Cassandra is just a little bit ahead of her.
Yeah, and if she's leaving out now, the pace she's moving, we're again talking 50 seconds total. I've got a clock on it, but we're 10 seconds in, and she's still on the first section of Twister.
And Rose is doing the same, very bicep intensive,
yes,
locking out her L's. Yeah, it's
and what going to 90 does, it makes you tense everything up really strong, obviously, and it taxes you, but it also negates your ability to really generate a swing that the shorter athletes, which are most of the women in this field, they need that swing to transition. But someone who does not struggle generating a swing is Nicole Miracle.
Yep. And it looks like she is just about to clinch her second straight North American or Pan Am regional championship. She won in Mexico last year. She just hit the bell, about 10 more steps, and her second straight regional championship victory, Nicole Miracle. What a career.
Yeah, and as always, the last stride looks the same as the first stride. Just always, always, always like a little machine out there.
Killing it, Lauren.
Just makes it look so... You can tell the greatness of an athlete by how easy they make things look.
Look at that. They're on regular asphalt or pavement right there, and the bushwhack. You've got all types of different terrain on this type of course.
Yeah, Lauren just can run.
Yeah. But that's what she does. That's her main thing that she does, even in hybrid. She just runs a ton, especially compared to other hybrid athletes. So her form looks like it.
She'll really struggle here on this hoist.
Oh yeah, no, strength is one of the hardest things for Lauren Weeks to do.
Yeah, if there's anyone in this field who's going to be just fine here. But even this, you can see how heavy these because these bags are filled with sand, you can see how waterlogged they get. And they'll gain 10 pounds, 15 pounds easily overnight with a little bit of drizzle.
Oh yeah, and you have to slowly bring it down. So that's another reason why locking out your biceps on monkey in the middle, a few obstacles before, like you're gonna want that so that you can lower the Herc hoist with control because they'll send you out on a penalty if you don't do that. So it's good to save it for later in the race. Well, Lauren
This
Weiss
will
has
be
had quite the
interesting.
summer. Yeah.
Yeah, she has. I don't know when the last time we saw Lauren Weeks on a wet rig was. She races Utah each year, which is the driest place on earth in summer.
Yeah.
She's so powerful, though. Not a problem at all.
Yeah, with the current environment of hybrid racing and OCR, most athletes are just specializing at this point. Lauren Weeks is doing it all, and even more credit to her at this point in the development of the sport. You in the early days, you could kind of do everything and still have success in both of them, but now it seems like you have to really prioritize one sport over the other. And she's proven you can still do both and just still dominate.
So in the last few months, she's been second at the
Gotcha.
Hyrox
Awesome.
World Championship and second at the Spartan North American Championship at a half marathon distance. Just astounding. And equally looking as good on the runs as Gil here.
Yeah, Cassandra really moving. She's still got the gloves on. I'm sure she memorized the course map. Knows she only has a couple left with the Herc hoist and the rig, but I think this is going to be the best finish of her life. She got 10th at the Morzine Ultra World Championship a couple months ago in over in Europe. She ended up racing there, but overall, this has got to be the best race of her career.
Yeah, if you told her at the start of the season she would, assuming like barring catastrophe here, finish on the podium at the North American Championship, she would have locked that in. This is there's undoubtedly the best OCR race she's run.
Yeah, so earlier this year, Jacksonville Super, Cassandra got 5th. She was 5th in Utah as well. And now at arguably, if you're looking at the start line, who was here, this is definitely a deeper race. Anytime you have Nicole Miracle, that instantly takes a spot off the podium. And Rose Wetzel's been on dozens of them throughout her career. Lauren Weeks, we just talked about how versatile she is. So for Cassandra to kick one of them off the podium, presumably if she gets this Herc hoist done, this
Look at
is
the difference in
easily
those
the
two
best performance
bags,
of her
though.
life. Yeah.
I don't know if that
Couldn't
one's
even get it
sitting
to
in a
budge.
puddle, but she couldn't even move one off the ground, and now this one goes. This is a good reminder to everyone out there that obstacles that give you the opportunity to test multiple lanes before you fail, when you get to a hoist and you're staring down a penalty anyways, it's worth tugging on a few others and seeing, will some of these move a little better? That was a good decision by her. Looks like she may have got help from the crowd, but either way, that avoided a penalty loop.
This is going to be a huge confidence booster for her as well. I already listed how fast some of her running accolades are. She's clearly got the ability level, being a former Division I runner, a number of local podiums, but getting 3rd place at a major race like this, I think that the 2025 season for Cassandra Gill, she is really going to come out swinging next year.
And here she is, 3rd place at the North American Championships in 2020. Oh my
She got it.
goodness.
She got it. Double get it.
But
There we
double
go.
checking. Good for her.
Just making sure
Oh,
she
that-
wants that.
Nerve-wracking finish, but she did it on the podium in Snohomish.
I would say this race, men's and women's field, it went sort of as predicted, but also it was completely unpredictable. Like Nicole, you expected her to win, but the rest was, I don't think anybody would have predicted the other 5 people in that order on the podium.
Rose hanging on here in 4th place. Still looks as strong as ever. Still looks as fit as ever. Your hometown race. Top 4 here at North American Championships. She's had a long career, and it doesn't show any signs of tailing off.
Not at all. It had a podium earlier in Big Bear. Let's add another one to the scoreboard. Or actually, 4th place. Excuse me, I misspoke.
Jack, after all this
All right.
talk in the months leading up, weeks leading up, that historically this fall Seattle race is drier, it is flatter and faster and hard packed. We got the classic Seattle experience.
I'm not buying it. Anybody who said it was going to be nice weather, you saw all the drops coming off every single time that they were on a hanging obstacle. We saw a lot of obstacle failures on grip related things. The terrain looked nasty. This was a great choice for a championship race.
Well, Jack, my takeaway is Nicole is who we thought she was. She's fully back. She is absolutely the dominant force that she once was. But Balin Bean has ascended. And all we can hope for now is that we see Balin, we see Hawk, we see Basilico, we see all the names show up to world championships and find out who really reigns supreme right now.
Yep. Balin Bean, he went to Abu Dhabi last year. Maybe he'll make a second trip out there. He's got 3 big podiums. He just cashed in $5,000 at this race. He's had a good year. Why not try it one more time?
Yeah, and even looking farther ahead, we had the announcement come out this past week that Spartan's having the Trifecta World Championships on U.S. soil for the first time in West Virginia, which is a course reminiscent of this terrain here, just more so, more hills, more steepness, more technical terrain. Suddenly, Balin might be looking and saying, I might have a world championship in my future.
Yeah, seriously. And like I said, he's 22, 23 years old, a young guy. So it's fantastic seeing him up there. I was also pumped to see Brendan Neely kind of make a name for himself on the men's side from Canada. Like I said, usually you're thinking of Ryan Atkins or Jesse Bruce, some of the more well-known ones, but Brendan Neely's putting together a pretty solid career over the past couple seasons. So well-deserved second place, and rounding out the podium, Rylan Shadig. He's had a bunch of health issues this year, but seeing him do well at a big race like this, I was really happy to see his name up there on the leaderboard.
Yeah, and Sean Roberts, even though he didn't get a lot of time on camera today, finishing just 3 minutes behind Rylan, who is a previous North American champion in a race that was a rout. He dominated the field. That's a really, really good sign that if he decides to stay in the Spartan realm here, he has a really bright future.
Yeah, Sean, I know that he's definitely more geared towards probably the super distance than the beast, but I think that if it was a little bit more runnable on a couple different portions, he might have stuck his nose in it a little bit more. But still, 4th place at a big race like this, nothing to be ashamed of. And rounding out the top 5, coming over from Switzerland, Manuel Defoe. All he does is do really well at North American major races. This might be his first time missing the podium in a long time, but
yeah, and I think Manuel wound up in the hospital after this, checking for a broken clavicle. I believe he got stitches, had an encounter out on course with a tree.
That is not a good encounter to have.
And then rounding it out, Nick Mask, he's going to walk away disappointed. He's won the past 2, maybe 3 races here. He came in believing he could win this thing and probably leaves believing that the next time out he is going to, but that man's going to get back to work. Ethan Brown with a strong 7th place. Jonathan Stern got out hot, faded, stayed on it, kept a top 10 finish. Scott Lerg in the top 10, and Ian Hosick, 10th place has been his position lately.
Yeah, I think Ethan Brown, a minute behind Nick Mask on a course like this. He just won the point series for this season. I think this is a fantastic performance by him.
Yeah, put up a performance that puts a nice cap on his point series championship.
Yep. Let's see the women's results, Jason.
I mean, Nicole is Nicole, but only 4.5 minutes behind Lauren Weeks, continuing to push the limits of what a well-rounded endurance athlete can do. And then Cassandra Gill, 3rd place, best finish of her OCR career.
Definitely. Nicole would have just missed the top 10, it looks like, on the men's side. I think Ian Osick was about 156, 155. So great performance by Nicole as expected. Pretty dominating victory, 421, but a 10.5-minute gap over 3rd place. That Nicole is still, whenever she steps on the start line, got to be one of the heavy favorites.
Rose Wetzel, she's the old guard. She's doing it in the new era. Another top 5 finish at North American Champs. Casey Monroe, we didn't even have her on our radar that she was going to be at this race, and finishes up 5th.
Yeah, Casey already has podiums earlier this year at National Series races, gets a 5th place here. She's had a a sneaky good season, honestly. So good for her. Jordan Houseladen had a pretty good performance earlier this year. Noel Morrow in 7th place, Caroline Stewart in 8th, Rachel Munoz 9th, and Elia Figueroa rounding out the top 10 on the women's side.
Jack, this puts a bow tie on our 2024 North American Championship Series with our North American Championship. Wrapping it up, we have 2 big competitions left: Trifecta World Championship, Spartan Race World Championship, coming to us from Abu Dhabi for the 4th year in a row.
2021. Yeah, it's been there since then. And I think OCR Worlds in 3 weeks, we're going to see that at Mammoth Lake. So I'm sure some of these athletes will find their way to that start line. If I'm Balin Bean, it's a mountain race at altitude with his success and the confidence he's got right now, and how smooth he looked on some of these tougher obstacles with the water. I'd be going to Mammoth if I were Balin Bean. We'll likely see Nicole also. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for tuning in, for enjoying this production of the OCR Report. Spartan Race, thank you for your support as always, and we'll see you guys at the next race.